All right, yeah. So, anyways, okay. So yeah, it's showing levels on my end. My audio is connected to my mix amp, and then that should just be getting sent out to the mix amp. I'm so sorry that this is showing issues. I've
you're all good. You're all good.
never quite had this issue before.
It's okay. It's all good. We're good here. We're seeing levels in iron from our mics, so I'm just wondering if like. And check 1 2. That's all coming through. Do you want to mute me and unmute me on this? Yeah, I can mute you real quick. Try now. Okay, 1 2 3 4. No.
It's shown as muted on Riverside. For Andy.
Yeah, no, we can if we can also try Zoom if this isn't working. Would that be better for you?
Yeah, Zoom will work. Zoom will work. I'm so sorry. I don't quite know what's going on with Riverside. Zoom will absolutely work.
You tell them we'll make Michael Bennett wait. You hear
that? I didn't quite hear it.
He said we'll make Michael Bennett wait. You're good.
I'm so sorry. Please do give Bennett my apologies. I was supposed to connect with him too. But all right, sounds good. Do you want me to share with you like an email to send that Zoom link over to?
Yeah. If you wanna share an email.
All right, you guys. So here's the next step. We're trying to figure out the technical difficulties that we're experiencing by going over to Zoom. So we're going to be doing that right now. I know that I unplugged my mic there at multiple points. That was purposeful. I did that intentionally. Sorry, you guys. But we are going on Zoom now. He's saying that he's going to make Michael Bennett wait. That's a Colorado senator. Whoopsie daisies. And by the way, for everybody that's asking for context, we're getting ready to have a conversation with Andy Beshear, the Democratic governor of Kentucky. And I'm the problem, apparently, because I am getting my audios in a mess, unfortunately. All right, one moment. Oh my goodness. What a bad introduction. Wait, someone in the chat said Jill's governor?
I literally just
is Jill from
Kentucky? I literally just started
If so, that's funny. Yeah, one more anxiety pin rip until we hop on. Gotta stay professional. All right, we're gonna go ahead and try to do this again on Zoom. Zoom should work. Zoom's never given me a problem. There we go. Focusrite audio, OBS, join. Test speaker mic. Microphone seems to work. There's a test on the speaker. We're good. Perfect.
All
Hello.
right. Can you
There
hear
it
me?
goes. Yes, now I can hear you.
Outstanding.
I that's a little bit of an unfortunate first impression on my end, and for that I
Hey,
apologize. But it's a pleasure to meet you.
you as well, and grateful you're willing to do this.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on, man.
So we're getting set on our end. I read your intro bio earlier, so we wouldn't have to take up your time. And so when we're ready, I'll look at this camera and say, "Welcome to the podcast," and we'll start off.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah, and it's your senator there from Colorado that's on next, but he's running late, so there's no issue at all.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, awesome. So are you talking to people specifically in Colorado? Is that what's
No,
going on
you,
today, or
so
did that just happen to line
so
up?
we'll run you this Thursday. It comes out Thursday morning.
Oh, cool.
And then we'll have Bennett and Weiser. So we're doing our second season's called Prime for 2026.
Yeah.
And we're trying to have a place people can go to see 3 or 4 primary candidates when there are 3 or 4. So we've done Georgia, we've done Maine, a number of the other big ones out there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice.
All right. Okay.
Recording in progress.
Good. Dean, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to meet you, man, and I'm happy to be here.
Really grateful you're taking the time. So I grew up in a family where if you weren't a Democrat, you weren't in the will. But your upbringing, I know, is a little different. Tell our listeners about your journey to where you are right now.
Sure. So I think first and foremost, where I grew up is probably relevant to this conversation, which would be on the western slope of Colorado. And I'm sure that there's many people who are tuning in right now who don't know much about the western slope of Colorado because there isn't much to know about it. But simultaneously, for those that do, you know that it's a very red conservative area with towns like Grand Junction, where I'm from, or cities like Pueblo, to Montrose. It's a very red area. And well, because of that, I grew up with a very red family. Both mom and the dad, from childbirth until now, have voted for Trump, stayed Republican. So, of course, in turn, because of those social pressures and biases, I myself considered myself to be a Trump supporter for a lot of my youth. But that quickly changed on January 6th, which is a whole different story. But long story short, grew up in a very Republican family. So it sounds like we kind of had opposite upbringings.
So you are one of the most followed progressive content creators. What was it that grabbed you that said, I want to do this? I want to explain my views to people.
Yeah, well, the first thing that really grabbed me into explaining my views to others and having discourse, because that's what I'm all about, is really just talking to people who disagree with me I disagree with them in an attempt to change their mind, or more thematically, just inspire people to critically think, was my declaration of a major in philosophy for the 2 years of college that I did up in Boulder. Going into that philosophy major, it really taught me a lot about how I could better think and structure my beliefs a little bit more objectively, with a massive consideration towards fact, reason, and logic. And I would apply what I'd learned in class just on online debates and subjects that I felt very adamant about, like abortion, for instance. And it was just kind of this gradual process from having these conversations in front of a crowd of maybe 10, 20 to 40 people to now having them in front of a crowd and at sometimes of 30,000. And it's been so fulfilling for me because I feel like it's finally given me this ability to maybe share what I've learned or even learn more from having these conversations, and what I hear back from a lot of the viewers of, you've been able to change my mind, you've been able to change my family members' minds, really keeps me going, because what it shows me is material change in the world around me, driven by what we talk about every day on live.
So you've said that you would still do what you're doing, even if you won the lottery. And
Yes.
That's pretty impressive. You wouldn't be on an island, or buying an island. You'd still be doing this. What's your hope? Let's say 5 years from now, about what your work will have meant.
Well, what will it have meant? I don't know what it will look like 5 years from now. And the reason why I'm being honest and telling you that is because if you ask me what my work will have looked like or meant 2 years in the future, 2 years ago, I
Right.
wouldn't be able to tell you that I'm at where I'm at today. Now, I would assume it would probably mean something similar, just on a little bit of a wider scale, if that makes any sense. Reaching more people, having new conversations about whatever's going on 5 years in the future, or who knows, maybe I'll, step into government. I don't know, and I kind of like to keep those doors open because at the end of the day, I'm kind of dead set on doing whatever I believe would be in the best interests of this country, insofar as changing minds and getting people on board with what should be common sense. And that's just so important right now when we have such a large and strong pressure downstream from DC, in my opinion, of trying to convince people of lies, of things that are not commonsensical at all. And it is just completely dependent on the world that we'll live in 5 years and what my reach at the point will be, which I don't know what that will look like.
So you communicate with folks all over the country every day. You've got your thumb on the pulse of what's going on in different groups of Americans. What do you think are the most pressing issues and challenges on people's minds right now?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think the most pressing issue on the average American's mind is affordability. And it has been for a long time. And I think that this is a crisis that has only been exacerbated by the Trump administration promising us a golden era where everyone's happy and everyone's loaded with money. But now we're seeing a year and a couple months into his term, gas costs more than it did when Biden walked out, and the growth rate in real median wages has slowed. So, I mean, I think that affordability really matters to me, to the average American, to everyone. And that's not an issue that we've seen properly addressed by the GOP, of course, but I mean, you'll hear me say that all day. But, also by many voices on the left, really not honing in on focusing on the real issues that impact the average everyday American, like the housing market, like groceries, like paying their bills. And I'm really hoping that coming into the midterms, we'll see a lot more candidates really railing in on that, now that we've seen that to be a proven recipe for success with people like Zohran Mamdani in New York City.
Yeah, I think that's so important. When I think about the challenges to this country that we're facing, division is certainly one. But that belief by so many Americans that the American dream is slipping away, that
Yeah.
you can work hard, play by the rules, and still not get ahead. And I think sometimes when we use the term affordability, we sound a little political sciencey, as opposed to what is that next bill that I just can't pay. What do you hear, especially from younger voters and younger Americans? Is it, I'll never be able to afford that home that I grew up in? That I'll never get ahead the way that I saw my parents get ahead? What is it that you hear the most?
Well, what I hear most from younger Americans definitely has to do with affordability, of course. Starting life as, a new adult in a world that just seems so unattainable in so many ways. So 110% affordability. But if we're narrowing the scope here to younger Americans, for the most part, I feel like I read a sense of disillusionment in the system altogether from younger Americans, from being a whole lot younger in high school and being, forced to stay at home, and not really understanding the nuance of a global pandemic and what that means for their neighbor and how it's actually maybe a good thing for us to do these lockdowns because they'll save lives, to then growing up a little bit and now watching the federal government refuse to release these files about all these really bad rapists that were harming children and then defending it in front of Congress or lying about it to our faces. It's that sense of disillusionment that it's us versus them, and that they're not very honest with us, especially with a growing sense of resentment, towards maybe some more of the long-term cemented allyships like we would have with the state of Israel and younger Americans. Like I saw this crazy statistic the other day that 70% of Democrats under the age of 50 don't support Israel. 50% of Republicans under the age of 50 don't support Israel. And how that kind of plays into this more bipartisan issue that, well, maybe there's actors on both sides of the aisles that aren't acting in the best interests of any American. And I feel like those have been the things that have been on the minds of younger Americans. And that is exactly, in my mind, what has made people, as I already mentioned, like Zohar and Mamdani be so successful, because it's more so that honest approach of, hey, I'm going to help you pay your bills. Okay, I'm going to focus on you. I'm going to focus on the betterment of all of you, not just some of you. And we're going to focus on the real issues, like what can we do to lower your taxes and make the top 1% pay their fair share? What can we do to lower your rent and make these billionaire, trillionaire companies and rich landowners and property owners only charge fair rates, or make them pay their own fair share too, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of where I'd say, once again, the mind of the younger Americans are at, is just feeling the sense of disillusionment in the system because of how much maybe they feel as if it has failed them in one way or another.
Yeah, I think that was the approach for Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill too, who ended up with margins of victory last November that were much larger than going into it any of us thought were possible. So if you were advising somebody who's going to be on the ballot in 2026, we've got so many House candidates. It looks like Democrats are going to be able to make a run at the Senate, which should have been structurally impossible but for where the country is. We've got 36 governor's races across the country, something that I'm pretty vested in as head of the Democratic Governors Association. What would your advice be to those candidates?
Well, I would be that advice would be to look at what has worked. There's a reason why every American was talking about Mamdani. There's a reason why we now know Abigail Spanberger's name. There's a reason why the Democrats won the mayoral race in Miami for the first time in 30 years. And that reason is because there's now an environment where the vast majority of Americans hate our president. The vast majority of Americans think our Republican-led Congress is failing us. So now they have this opportunity to run against that tyranny. Now they have an opportunity to run against what we don't like and to really take advantage of that opportunity and seize that while also running on what the Americans do want. I think that we need to be putting more of a pressure against the top 1%, against the ruling elite. We need to be putting a pressure on Congress to follow the law, abide by the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and that's what the people want. It's just be a progressive a populist in my mind. That's what has been working. I think it'll work more because that's what the people want. So in short, my advice would be is please run on what the people want, run on what the people care about, and look at this disillusionment that is being experienced by so many younger Americans and treat it seriously. Don't treat it as an obstacle that you somehow have to rhetoric your way out of or ignore in interviews, and address it head on.
We've had a number of focus groups. We've had high school students, college students, young professionals, and a lot of what we ask is, how do you get your news? How do you connect with either candidates or the news that's out there? And what we hear from so many of them is through you, but also through YouTube and TikTok as that first thing that gets them interested, and then they do a deeper dive for more. Tell us you are a master at this, how you go about trying to pique that interest so that you can get these folks, not just young voters, all voters, to learn a little bit more about the issues that we're facing.
Sure. When I report the news, my main objective is for the way in which I report it to be at a level that could be understood by somebody who is completely apolitical without a background insofar as knowing with the events that have unfolded in the last year, 5 years, 10 years, while still being able to communicate all of the substance of the headline. And what I mean by that is I feel like even myself, when I was younger, 16, 17, and not too politically involved, would be looking at headlines or looking at independent journalists and trying to keep up with what they were trying to tell me. But I just couldn't really follow, if that makes sense, because let's just assume that maybe independent journalists were reporting on Donald Trump pulling us outside of the JCPOA under his first administration, the denuclearization agreement that we had with Iran. And the independent journalists or the CNNs of the world would say, Trump pulled us outside of the JCPOA, alarm bells are ringing, end of story. But what the hell is it, the JCPOA? I don't know what that is, right? So when I approach breaking the news to my audience, I always make sure to use words that are understood by the average American. I purport concepts in which could be grasped without that background knowledge on the subject matter. And if there's something that has to be, discussed that would require background knowledge, I also make sure to then share that background knowledge. So that's the way I break the news. If that's the question that you're asking. And I think that the world would benefit if a lot more people did that, because we like to assume in our own political echo chambers on the internet here that everyone's political, but that's further from the truth. No, not everyone is political.
Especially on cable news, they assume that you've been watching cable news all day long, that you can respond to a story that they put out an hour or two ago when most of us are going to work and not seeing that or going to class. What was the video that you did maybe that caught fire where you said, I think I can do this full time?
I think that had to have been my sit down on Jubilee for a 1v20 debate a while ago. I think at this point, coming up on 2 years this September, where I sat down, I debated 20 Trump supporters at once, and then Jubilee turned around, posted that on their YouTube channel, and people really seemed to like it.
So when you're in that debate, a battle of ideas, and it helps when you have facts on your side, how is it that you both try to argue your point, but also not disrespect that other person with a different viewpoint all at the same time?
Yeah. Well, the thing is sometimes I do find myself disrespecting the other person. And many times I do end up regretting that, because some of the best conversations that I'll have on my platform are when we can freely discuss the substance of the claims being made. And inevitably, people will always be more open to change rather than not when they don't feel like they're being personally attacked. And I guess what I would say here is I just really try to focus on what they're saying, and I try to focus on why it's wrong. And if those are my two goals of what are they saying, and if it's wrong, why it's wrong, I don't find myself kind of entertaining those personal attacks as much. But I think it's, important for me to be honest here. That's not what you'll see every single time you watch one of my debates. And maybe that's something I could work on.
You got pretty emotional after the Charlie Kirk assassination. I know somebody that you had debated. I lost one of my closest friends in a mass shooting. It's
Wow.
traumatic.
It's actually very
Tell
wild.
me, as you look back now, what are your thoughts and feelings on it? I know we all desperately want to.
Ice room right before I joined in, so that's a good question. So I would say that my thoughts and feelings on it have changed quite a bit the more time has passed. So first and foremost, I don't regret or pull back on,
Because I'm
crying
usually
on
already
live,
streaming,
which
and
is
then
what I
I
did that
like
sparked a
to
lot of
stream and
controversy.
listen
And
to
this is
Dean
exactly
too.
what
I
I
like
was
him debate. I
talking
like
about
his
before
debates.
I
Like listening to him
joined
debate.
this conversation. And
Why are you
that
on
was
my
because,
stream?
well, my best friend was there. He was 20 feet away. He was the first person he
Links with the
called. He was
freaking
running
comments,
away,
both of them.
screaming,
I mean,
thinking it
helps
was a
bring
mass
people in here.
shooting. Regardless of my thoughts on Charlie Kirk, I think he was a bad person with bad beliefs. He was still a person that I personally interacted with. So it was a little bit jarring watching a video of his jugular getting split open, or even how that maybe induced a sense of fear on my behalf of saying, now can I go outside? Which I didn't for the next 3 weeks after that happened. Stayed inside, got cameras, put them outside on my door because I thought maybe I'm next. And that was a very jarring and, honestly, just troubling series of events with all that information. But a year and a half later, and no, it's not even a year and a half later. What am I saying? I'm sorry. A little bit later, down the road, I would say maybe what has changed are my thoughts on the role that Charlie Kirk played for the right. What he would be saying today about what is going on today, and maybe what is the appropriate response from the left to somebody like Charlie Kirk getting taken out. I think that it is important to condemn all political violence. I don't think that he deserved to die, and I don't retract any of my statements about that either that I said when he was shot. But simultaneously, I think that a lot of people on the left are really feeling disillusioned because when that happened, people were getting fired from their jobs for saying they didn't care. And then less than a couple months later, our president Trump turned around and called for the execution of 7 Democrats in Congress. Then everyone celebrated. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge here that if we want to condemn political violence, and we have to do so in a bipartisan nature, and we can't have a president turning around and calling for the execution of some Democrats.
I've made the exact same point. The idea that Trump will
No, it's
only
all love,
condemn
bro. Like I said, I
violence
be streaming
when
this
it's
shit,
against
and
someone
I just
that
like watching
looks
them and
like
stuff.
him,
So I usually
prays
like cut
him,
everything
if
and
he
watch
prays,
him when he
votes
comes
like
on.
him. And the scene that still hits
Am I
me
bad, bro?
as a person of faith who believes in that golden rule is Erica Kirk comes out and says something that's almost straight out of the Bible, right? That she forgives her enemies. And then Donald Trump walks out right afterwards and says, "Not me, I hate him."
Yeah.
I mean, basically a president of the United States saying to a large crowd of people that he believes in the exact opposite of that golden rule. I think that showed that he is not willing to condemn political violence and in fact has called for it on multiple occasions.
I couldn't agree with you more. Spot on.
What do you think is the next big issue that's going to grab the American people?
I feel
think
like
we're
I like
certainly
Dean a
seeing,
lot more. He's a lot
some
more like
concerns
intelligent. He
over
knows a little
AI,
bit more than
especially
Parker
in different
opinion.
communities. What else are you hearing?
I do like
About
Parker
the
too, for
next
sure.
big issue. Oh man, you know, with Steve Bannon's flood the zone technique that we've seen, you know, since the beginning of Trump's first presidency, I'd argue that we never really know what the next big issue will be, and that's something that's been really hard for me to come to terms with. One week it's war in Iran,
Right.
Next week it's the Epstein files, and the week before that, like I said, it's him calling for the execution of Democrats, or, you know, maybe defending the murder of Alex Preddy. We don't know what the big issue is. There's always a big issue. One week it's one thing, the next week it's something else.
There's
Now,
always a big
if
issue.
You're more so asking, you know, what are the big
Dealing
issues
with
that will be
freaking President
impacting
Trump.
the average American compared to the big issues that Donald Trump wants to impact the average American? You know, like you said, I would assume that AI is on the rise. That's going to become something we have to legislate on. I think that we really need to address the lawlessness that we've seen from federal agencies such as DHS and ICE. I think that we need to hold the liars and the corrupt politicians and the Trump administration and the DOJ accountable for breaking the law and refusing to release the Epstein files. So I hope the next big issue is midterms comes and goes, Democrats win, and then Democrats turn around and hold a bunch of people in the GOP and the Trump administration accountable. And that's what everyone is talking about for 6 months. That's the next big issue that I like.
So I've been critical of my own party in the response to the flood the zone. It's clear that they throw out 10 shiny balls every single day. And the question is, are we the cat that runs after all of them? Or do we stay focused on affordability, on the things that matter to the American people? I've been a big believer that discipline and focus is how we win, not just in the midterms, but hopefully how we stay together as a party and keep winning, not just in 26, but hopefully in 28.
Yeah, I agree. It will never be a bad thing for a politician to stay focused on helping the average American through affordability, through other means. I like that. That's what our politicians should be focused on. But I do also think simultaneously that the Trump administration purports such a unique threat to the social, moral, and legal fabric of this great nation that it is simultaneously very important for us to also focus on amending the wrongs, of holding the ill-willed accountable, and firing those in which we can that are culpable for these wrongdoings, for the long-term preservation of our social, moral, and legal fabric of our great nation. And I think if we could find a way to do those things all at the same time, where we want to help the average American focus on accountability, address the issues that matter the most, while simultaneously also wanting to hold the bad actors in our government accountable, which would include maybe sometimes chasing the shiny balls that flood the zone, that would be the best approach for the people and for the nation.
Give us your predictions on the midterms.
Well, I mean, my predictions are very limited. I'm not too much of a predictive man, if that makes any sense. But I would argue that we've seen a trend in the special elections held so far since Trump's victory. Democrat seems like, I was seeing a new video nearly every day for a while about, oh my goodness, a Democrat won this a deeply red district seat that has been held by Republicans for the last 40 years in Georgia, Tennessee, Florida. I mean, I think it was like 2 days ago that a Democrat won a race for, what was it? A mayoral race in some place in Florida, and 1-by-1 vote, and that position hadn't been held by a Democrat in 30 years. So because of what we've seen in these special elections, I think we'll see that in the midterms too. You said it yourself, when we first started a conversation, that somehow the Senate is in play for Democrats, which is just an impossibility, it seems like, but it is. So I think that we're going to see a blue wave, sea to shining, sea coast to coast. And I think it's going to be a day of celebration, and then the day in which follows will hopefully be a day of accountability, in which has been long deserved for many members of the Trump administration.
So some of our listeners may not know what it's like to be a content creator. When you start your day, on average, I mean, you post across multiple platforms, different content. How much of your day is sitting there cranking it out?
Oh man, it varies. Some days it's 4 hours, other days it's 12. It definitely varies. I'd argue on average around 6.5 hours of work every day, 7 days a week. But then when you have super big things happen, then I might be working from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. A good example of that would be the day that Alex Preddy was killed by an ICE agent. From the moment I woke up at 9 a.m. until the moment I went to bed at 11:30 or 12, I was recording videos, performing, analyzing the footage to dispute the narrative purported by the Trump administration going live. And, that's how it is sometimes. But, I love to do it because I want to ensure that there's good information out there accessible to the average American to maybe refute some of the BS, for lack of a better term, we're hearing from some of the loudest people in the country.
One of the reasons we started the podcast was the impact on mental health that the news is having right now. But you can't take a break, especially when the news is that hard hitting. So what do you do for your own mental health to make sure that you're still good and able to continue to educate a lot of our folks out there?
Great question. One that I spent a long time trying to answer. Sunlight and working out. Those are my two things. As long as I'm working out at least 5 days a week in the gym and get at least an hour or two of sunlight a day, I'm good.
Well, that's a lot healthier than some other people's choices. What do you like to do when you're not creating content? What do you do to get away from it?
Oh, a lot of music. I play piano, play guitar. I spend a lot of my time composing my own pieces on piano. We're working on some jazz improv, and hanging out with my girlfriend, and other times watching TV. So those are my quote unquote escapes.
Wait, I want to break some news here. Is Dean Withers in a band?
Oh, shit.
I have been at points in the past. I formed a band for when I was in college for 2 years before I dropped out. I say band very loosely because we never did on-stage performances or anything. But I had a group of buddies, and we'd play music very frequently, and it was so much fun.
If you could take a week off, and I know you probably can't, what would you do?
Oh man, taking a week off. I love the beach. I really love the beach. I might spend it at the beach somewhere, or I might rent an RV and just take it on a road trip. That sounds really fun, to go see Yosemite, go see the redwood forests in California. Maybe take it down to the south. One of those two options. That's what I'd be looking for.
People ask me, how do you communicate so well with Republican voters? And I say, well, first, they're my neighbor. And so I just treat them like a person. But second, I vacation in the panhandle of Florida. So you have to be able to. What we like to ask people what their secret superpower is. What is something that you're really good at that no one knows?
Ooh, something I'm really good at that no one knows. Yeah, that's a great question.
I'll tell you, Amy Klobuchar apparently doesn't need much sleep. That would be a productive one. My wife, Brittany, can pack a suitcase like no one I've ever met. You could be at the beach and want a parka, and it is somehow in the suitcase. Cindy Munson, who's running for governor of Oklahoma, makes the best guacamole out of anybody she's
Sure.
met.
Sure. You know what? I'm really good at roller skating.
That is an excellent one. Like rollerblading?
Oh yeah, rollerblading. When I was younger, I was doing statewide, nationwide competitions on the blades.
Oh, wow. See, back in my day, it was Champs Roller Dome. It's a little different. It was just whether you could limbo on roller skates. What do you want people to know about you and to take away? If you could write what you want your reputation to be, what would it be?
Inspiring people to critically think. That's what it's all about. I think that so many things are so important to so many Americans, like entertainment, football, and TV. But one thing that's not too important to many Americans is critically thinking. And if critically thinking could be more important to more people, we might just be able to save this country now and forever.
Let's close out with, you see and have a lot of people on. You see a lot of people who serve. You see a lot of candidates. What is it about one of any of those that actually gets you excited, that inspires you?
Oh, I gotta say, I've mentioned his name 4 or 5 times in the interview so far, so clearly he's somebody that inspires me. Seeing young people so involved, so sharp, so on it, and pushing for the right things, like people like Zohran Mamdani in New York City. That really inspires me, because that shows me, truly shows me, just how capable so many young people can be. And it pushes me to push myself to do a little bit more tomorrow than I did the day before.
Well, we are grateful that you would take a little bit of time for this podcast. There was a strong recommendation that we had to have you on by Lila Beshear, my daughter, who has taught us Gen Z lingo on this podcast before. So I've gotten to personally see how you reach out, how you educate, how you create that critical thinking. We're really grateful for the job that you do, and thanks for being on.
Well, I appreciate you for having me on, and thank you for your kind words, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Great. Feel good about it?
Yeah, that was good. That was really good. I see why your approval rating is 65% in a red state. You made me feel pretty dang comfortable.
Well, that's it. What you were talking about on how you talk to people. I've got a thing I always say: talk like a normal human being, and you can interact with everyone.
Recording stopped.
Yeah, you did. I didn't. I'm gonna be honest, Andy. I didn't feel like I was talking to a politician.
Good.
So you're killing it.
I was a human being before all this. I just try to get back to that every now and then.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I wish you the best of luck with Bennett, and have a great rest of your day.
Great. We will we'll send you the whole thing. I know you recorded too. Anything you could do to push it out, be real helpful for us. We have a decent audience on SiriusXM, especially.
Yeah.
And then comparatively, we are teeny tiny on YouTube, but we're growing.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'll do what I can.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Have a good one. All right, folks. Let me go ahead and reopen the YouTube and TikTok real quick. What did you guys think of that? Wow. That was I don't think I've really talked to many politicians like him before. That was weird, dude. I'm a little disillusioned. Whenever you talk to a politician, you could tell you're talking to a politician. That just kind of felt like I was talking to a human. Like that was interesting. What I said there at the end, I see why he has that high approval rating. I meant it. You know, just talks like a human. Now, I'm not familiar with his with his politics. I wish I would have familiarized myself a little bit more at the beginning. I'll have to look into his politics. I'll have to look into like what he actually advocates for policy wise and where he stands, because I wonder, you know, what is he looking at in you know, the next presidential. That's the reason why I know his name, is because it was being tossed around quite a bit for the Oval. Anyways, thank you so much for the $5 over on Super Chat, Narcissa, who says, "This is so fake. You have no idea how stupid the interview sounds. This is horrible." Damn, bro, that was your problem. Feel free to explain it. Feel free to